Hey, before we start, this isn't a deep dive, a takedown, a diagnosis. It's just a long voice note. It's me working out my projections out loud. So every time I say you or we, I really mean me. I don't want to speak on your behalf. Okay? Love you, friend, and let's go.
Right?
And then we hit our tragic, and I'm like, damn.
Right.
A prenup would have been a good idea.
Hey, remember, you didn't get a prenup.
Right.
Something that you need to have, cause when she leave, she gon' leave with half. 18
And that's it right there. You should have gotten the prenup. You should have gotten the prenup. Hey, friend. So in this podcast, it's a response to the Aubrey Vylana. I'm going to get these names all mixed up. Vylana and Alana podcast that they just most recently did. And this is a response to that. And I'm sure you've heard others. I'm sure you've listened to a few. But let me tell you, this one is probably going to be very similar. Not much different. I mean, what is there to say, right? So here's how I want to start, though. I want to start with, at the end of that podcast, they were like, we don't want your projections.
Please don't project onto
Right.
me
No
that
one-
I'm not
no one-
choosing this for myself.
No one reads it.
Please.
Right?
okay if
Everyone's
you do,
made.
Basically your biases, your shadow work, your wounds, all that. Just don't project onto us. So I want to start this off with my projections, right? Here's what I'm projecting. Here are my wounds. Here's my shadow in some of this. Here's what activated in me. Okay. And if I put that out there on the table, really upfront, and maybe if I can, as we go along, say these things out loud, it'll be different, because I'm not coming from a place of, girl, I see that there's some dissonance and you need some discernment, and twin flames do not work like this, and all of that, right? But coming from a place of compassion for the situation, and we'll get to that too. So let me just say, I'm jealous. Yeah, when you're judging, you're jealous. I heard a teacher say that. When you're judging, you're jealous. And here are my jealousies. I've never been to Patagonia. I don't even own anything from the Patagonia brand. You know what I mean? Like, what a dream. And like, Aub makes that happen. Aub makes that happen for these women. Okay? For his wife and the sister girlfriend. And we'll get into that too. But, yeah, so I'm jealous of the money, the luxury, the money and the luxury and the beauty. So let's do that. The beauty, of course, like, these women are beautiful. I mean, definitely a part of me wants to see what I eat in a day. I'm like so curious. Not that I would ever like do their workout routine, because I'm sure it's intense, but I would love to see it. So part of me is kind of, judgy and jealous of how beautiful they are, how this could never be me, and how someone so beautiful could even be in a situation like that. Like, girl, you are so pretty. Why would you be in this situation? And let's see, I have some judgments about the divine masculine vibe that Aub has going on. The protector, provider, but yet like King Eros. And I have to, also I'm the stallion of my urges.
That I had a thriving wild stallion of Eros that desired, different experiences, different connections.
There's also the spiritual part of it. Like, oh man, you're kind of like ruining, you're putting a bad light on spirituality and all these buzzwords that we really like. Now you're using up these buzzwords, and I can't use these buzzwords because, you're using them in a way that makes everybody eye roll. So you're ruining it for the rest of us. So those are some of mine. Other ones will come up, I'm sure. And a big one is I've been in a relationship that I guess we're going into the podcast now. So I have had a relationship where there was betrayal, where somebody cheated on me, where, I walked into a room with my partner and I saw my partner see somebody across the room and that attraction was there, and how it killed me, right? And so a lot of us have been through that. And when we see Vylana, when we see Vi, our wounds of that are activated, and we're looking at her like, girl, like I see the red flags, and you got to get out. You got to get out. This is, I can see the sadness in your eyes. I've heard that so many times. I can see the sadness in your eyes. Even when you're in Patagonia, I can see the sadness in your eyes. And we kind of forget that, we went 10 years, 5-10 years in a relationship that was like that. And that we also had people on our side saying, this is not good for you. I can see that you're unhappy. Why are you taking this? Why are you going back into this situation? And it's so easy to look back and say, I've been through it. So learn from me, hear me out, save yourself. You deserve more. But also realizing that we had to go through it. We had to go through it until we couldn't take it anymore. And then it was a messy breakup, or it was it's always a messy breakup, even if you're like, no, this is fine. It hurts. It hurts really bad. And so I had that whole, why am I not good enough? Why am I not enough? And then I see how this beautiful goddess, Vylana, with the beautiful, magical frequency voice, and I'm like, fuck, if they can't make it, what hope do any of us have, But Aubrey saying, hey, I'm going to do this out in the open. I'm not going to lie about it, but these are things that I need. And if I don't lie about it, we can work through it. I guess I can, in my old relationships, I asked for that too. Just be honest with me, and then I can work through it. Because if that other person wasn't a spiritual inner work person, I was, and I thought I could kind of buzzword my way through it. And so most of us, we're just a couple therapy sessions further along, honestly, than what we're seeing, or so we believe to be. Okay. So about Aubrey with, this isn't the hungry ghost.
It's not the hungry ghost constant need for novelty to generate some form of eros that only lasts for a fleeting moment, like monogamy. The same body, no matter how nice the body, it's the same somebody. I want novelty, not monotony. Anybody to make me feel alive again, on fire again, alive again.
This isn't the hungry ghost. And I guess I don't think it is so much as maybe the idea of, it's not like I'm not happy, I'm not content. I could just be more happy or more content. I think this guy is always looking for the experience, and to never say like, oh, I didn't try that out and failed. But these are patterns. We can see that this is a pattern with him, and there's something going on the inside that creates this pattern. And what's funny, not funny, haha, but funny, interesting, is he's done 2 podcasts with Richard Schwartz, with IFS, you know what I mean? And these are all parts. And love that. And I like those podcasts, but I think he has some major protectors, some major archetypes, and they're very strong. And I also feel like he has a lot of self-like parts. He has a lot of self-like parts. And that's, I do too. And that's spiritualism, right? So there is like kind of an agenda there. Because self doesn't have an agenda. But the self-like parts knows the language, knows the buzzwords, knows the process of it, and still has an agenda and can kind of use it for their own gain. And it's when you have like a self-like part that has an agenda and cares about the people around them, but doesn't really care about the collateral damage because they figure they can evolve through it or do some inner work, shadow work through it and still get what they want. That's a whole thing. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just a thing, it's just a thing. And Vylana has a lot of, I saw another podcast, and Vylana has a lot of like insecurities. She's been betrayed before. So this is her pattern too. So, wounds attract and defenses clash, right? So they're trying to take both of their defenses and kind of smooth them over and make them understand each other. But
It's been so helpful for me to see through your eyes.
But really, it's just wounds attracting. Wounds attract. And maybe she's going through this thing of, this is a pattern. And to stop the pattern, I have to open myself up to love.
I could feel this like wounded sister, are you trying to take something from me? Are you trying to take my place? And one thing that I've learned through our relationship is when I like really lean into the love, instead of isolating and making you other, but I lean into our relationship, it feels the best in my system. I feel so much more at home, and I feel like it's been healing the parts of me from my younger self that has needed that love and sisterhood and care. And so,
because love heals all, right? So if I open myself to the experience of love within this pattern, it will break the pain, or I can get through the pain, or I can, there's a lot of ors, right? or maybe. So I'm just guessing here. Aren't we all, even about our own shit, we're always just guessing. But, hold on, I blanked out for a second. Or while I'm in the situation, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to experience all the love and all the just the experiential part of it before it goes away, in case it goes away, in case this cannot go on anymore.
It's interesting because my life is so extraordinary. It never escapes me for a moment how grateful I feel for what I experience, but I'm pretty constantly exhausted.
And I mean, she has a right to that too. They're all adults. They're all consenting adults. It's very interesting. Alana with the purity. I think people are upset with the idea that, the purity of her.
The goodness and purity that you've maintained through this process is like, it's really been absolutely stunning and exceptional, and been such a blessing, and it's such a blessing to now be able to share you on this world stage as an archetype, and not to reduce you to a single archetype, but the archetype of purity.
I feel like maybe she's just having like what's it called when you're parentified child, having like a parentified child moment here. I think she said that she had an interesting upbringing, and she had to grow up really quick, and survival. And I think there's that's lingering here, and she feels wanted, and her sacrifice in this is she's like a PDA person, like public display of affection. Like she wants to be like held all night, but she doesn't get to share the marital bed or something.
A bit to like the unique sacrifices. I think that that's something that a lot of people would imagine into or come across if they were in my position. And one of the things for me is the way that I love and love to be loved is like very full on and very intimately and kind of consistently. And obviously within our constellation, there's different availability. And so, one of the specific challenges that came up for me was, going to sleep most nights by myself. And
Vi is like Queen Vi. So if you have a queen, what is Alana? If Vi is a queen goddess, what is Alana here? And I think, so they're like sister wives or sister, not sister biological, but they look a lot alike.
I'm feeling very into sisters right now.
But sister as in sister wives. But that's kind of weird. Like, it's kind of incestual, right? Because then you're like to a king, to the masculine, to like when I imagine Aubrey, I like see him as like the lion with the crown, and she's a goddess. Vi is a goddess, and I don't know, Alana, I don't know, it's like harem.
He said, "Prostitutes are the safeguard of the home." I remember that phrase very particularly.
I'm not sure. I'm not trying to diss on Alana. People are like, oh, she's just, cashing in. But I think there's an emotional thing to this too, and she feels like she is an emotional regulator between them two. And maybe she feels like but what assuming does, right? But maybe I would love to ask them, maybe she feels like, I'm glad it's me. At least it's me. Because I won't harm. I don't want to harm. If it was somebody else, there could be harm here. Someone would take advantage. I don't want to take advantage. I want to help this relationship. I want to add to it. I don't want to take from it. So those are some of my thoughts about it. And as we think about this and explore it and listen to podcasts, let's look at our own wounds, because we have some empathy for Vylana. I feel that very much so. A lot of us have empathy for her. So when we hear her story and we see her cry, and we see her inner critic and her protector parts, we feel that. But we feel our wounds. So when you're in empathy with somebody, you're feeling your own wounds. You're like, I've been there. I know what that feels like. I can imagine, it's difficult. You love this person so much. You want to be chosen. You thought you were. And you're feeling your own wounds. But at the same time, she's living a very lavish life, but she's also highly stressed. She's really stressed. She has a lot of inner critic happening with her. She has a lot of fear of perception, and she has a lot of perfectionism happening with her. And maybe Alana doesn't have that. She's the 20% that can just show up and be pure as she is, where Vylana has to really work on it, an hour and a half in front of the mirror, making sure it's just right.
Some of the things you hear that you say in your head when you're looking in that mirror.
God, my hair sucks today. Why does it feel so thin? Why is my skin breaking out? Am I gaining weight? I've been working out so hard. What's happening with my body?
Yeah.
And then all the ways to solve the issues that I see. Maybe I need to change my shampoo, or try a new product or, be in this
We're on shampoo number 87
machine of
since in the last 3
consumerism.
years.
Definitely in the machine of consumerism, it's like, how do I fix all these things that are wrong or imperfect or broken?
Yeah. And maybe they think, oh, Vylana can learn something from Alana on how to just let go and be. And there's some age stuff happening here. It's very complicated. And I'm not trying to really therapize or judge, even though I have my own wounds and such, judge and say, this is spiritual psychosis and all that. Because, here's one other thing with the therapist that they have. Now, a lot of people have been shitting on the therapist, and I skipped a lot. I skipped a lot of the word salad that he had because it was just co-signing everything that they're doing, and people got upset about that too. Like, this guy is just hyping them up and co-signing everything, and I get that. Don't we do that to some of our friends sometimes? We hype them up, but what I feel like is if you have somebody in a possibly destructive situation, right, where this could just explode, it could just disintegrate this whole relationship, something like this, right? So it doesn't feel safe all the time, right? And I know Vylana had said on the podcast that she didn't feel safe, but when you don't feel safe, when someone doesn't feel safe, you try to work on the parts that don't feel safe and work on the parts that are looking for safety or like protecting the system. And I think that's kind of what he's doing and it sounds like co-signing, but really if they're going to go and do this, if Aub has made up his mind and Vylana's like, I'm not ready to give up on this life and this person, because I'm sure he's very masculine, but also really sensitive. He can cry, he can, need nurturing, and he can also protect. So there's, girls, please stop. It's the billionaire reverse harem, the billionaire why choose. I mean, if we look, we love reading this stuff, And this is some Kindle Unlimited, gold right here,
The men are out there like, oh, Aubrey's got it made and figured out. Really, really think. If your sweetheart, your beloved, goes to spend the night with another man and they're having sex, could you really be okay with that? Could you really champion that? Could you really be a wingman and be like, I want this for you, and also hold the discretion?
I want your pleasure even when it doesn't come through me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We be reading about this type of stuff. So she's not ready to let that go. And so what you can do in a situation like that is be supportive through each step of it and not say you're alone in this. And also, so that can sound like co-signing when you try to he is co-signing the whole situation, but when you're if you were in it with them, you probably would too. If you were in that circle of friendship, you would too. Honestly, it's easy not to be their friend and say that, or it's easy to say to yourself oh, if I was her bestie, I would say that, or I've met them and I would definitely say that to them. I've been to their retreats and I would definitely be honest about my feelings. But your feelings are your projections from the things that you've experienced, and that's how they're gonna see it. They're gonna see through that and know that this is the experience that they have to get through and see what happens on the other side of it. They're hoping for the best. They're hoping that it works out. But I feel like deep down inside, it's wobbly. It's wobbly. And so the therapist, what are you going to do? Be like, this is absolute trash. This is a dumpster fire waiting to happen, I think you just try to create safety around it so that emotions are regulated, even if it feels like bypassing, some bypassing, just to keep emotions regulated so that there's no harm. So I think there's something to be said about that too. Not saying that I like the dude. Like I said, I skipped a lot of what he said because I just want to hear it from them. But anyway, I think this ends the podcast for now. And thank you for listening. I'll talk to you later, friend. Bye-bye.